Hi, I'm Bart. How are you? Nice to see you all. Nice to hang out with friends. And I got a lot of stuff to talk to you about. So let me wait to put off like the big news about VideoFest. But this Tuesday night at 7 o'clock at the Studio Movie Grill in Arlington, we will be showing the work from my documentary class this summer. And some of the work is just going to be really quite stellar and amazing, and at least I hope so. They have one more week to get it done. So
which one?
At UT Arlington? Oh, the one on Cooper, the new one, the one in Lincoln Square. Yeah. So that'll be really exciting. So that's the very first thing coming up. The next thing coming up after that is Cat Fest. So let me talk about this for a little bit. So I don't know if any of you were at CatFest 1 last year, but it was a truly remarkable experience. When we thought we were going to do this, I thought it would be kind of just a fun thing, a cool thing to do, and I didn't realize how it connected with an audience in a profound way. First of all, we filled the Texas Theater, which is not an easy thing to do unless you have David Lowery there. But the lights went down and you could hear meow, meow, meow before we showed anything. A cat does something cute and there's like this big loud and it was clear that this was a community of people that had found each other that didn't know they were community. They sort of found that oh yes, we all love these cat films in private, and we're going to see them in public, and we've shared them with a group of people.
They're all furries.
Yeah, we're all furries. So this is kind of like what film does, Film lets people who are interested in African American issues, Latino issues, gay issues, get together and watch these things, Jewish issues, and see things where you recognize yourself, your joys and your happiness, and you have this joint experience with an audience. And to do this for the cat community was incredibly wonderful. So yes, there is a cat community. So this year I found some very interesting things. We have a Thomas Edison film with cats in it, which is really interesting. From
what year?
I think it's 1894, if I remember correctly. It's two cats boxing. Dr. Watson's Boxing Cats, I believe, is the title of the film. We also have Tom Kalin, who's a really great filmmaker, created original work for us. Also Jennifer Reeder, who's a filmmaker we've shown, created a piece for us as well. So so there's a lot of the cats being afraid of a printer doing something crazy, and then there are kind of interesting films by filmmakers in there. And then there's one thing that is truly special that you don't know about. So in my research, I reminded myself of a film that I completely had forgotten about. How many of you know Maya Deren?
Maya Deren?
Okay, Maya Deren is a very famous experimental filmmaker, probably the most well-respected experimental filmmaker in America. Maya Deren made what she calls an experimental film. It's really an observational documentary called The Private Life of Cats. It's a 22-minute film that is silent, and we're going to have a live improvised score. And this will be the last film of the night. And so what's really wonderful, and it follows this cat who has a litter of kittens, and you see them kind of grow up in a little bit. And it's really kind of beautiful. And after these 20-second, 40-second little snippets of things, to have this 22-minute experience is going to be really wonderful. So I'm really excited about that. So the people who are cat lovers, this will be a different experience for them. And I know they're not expecting it, but I hope that they will kind of enjoy it. It's going to be something special.
And again, that's it. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I was just gonna, go ahead, you've got a question.
Well, I just saying that for me, it wouldn't be because my cat like always does something crazy and random like every day compared to most cats that are lazy. Like my cat is always energetic, but yet does something really weird, like pretty much worthy of like a cat video. Like I don't even know why I don't film her every day because she does something really like oddballish. But I mean, I guess there's still cats out there. I guess you just either have to train them or just be lucky that they'll do something strange.
They just do strange things.
Yeah.
But the sort of point of sort of talking about from like the days of Edison is that this is not a new phenomenon. Well, cat videos on the internet have certainly driven a lot of traffic. I think it's like porn 1, cat video 2. That it goes back, that there is historical precedent. As long as there have been people with cameras, people have been making cute films about their pets. When you think about The Tonight Show, how many times did you see stupid pet tricks? Right? Going back to Johnny Carson, David Letterman, right? This has been a part of our sort of cultural history forever. So, CatFest, August 24th at the Texas Theater. Just also happens to be my first day back at school, where I'll be teaching a film as art class to 54 students, which is a very interesting experience. Yes, yes. Anybody who wants to help grade papers, I'm really happy to have you. So that's the first thing.
And
Yes.
can I say that getting a pass for the festival
Yes.
starts with
Right.
Cat Fest.
But that's a whole nother story, but I'm not going to tell you yet.
You can get more information on.
Are you gonna have someone dressed up as a cat while you're doing Cat Fest?
Oh, I'm sure.
I would be willing to bet that there'll be a few people dressed up as cats. Actually, I have this really great idea. If anybody knows somebody who's got a like button making machine, like what I really want to do, you'd have one? Or you know somebody does. I want to tell people to bring like a photo of their cat and make a button and they can wear their cat on their shirt, which would be like so awesome.
I just say that I know I'm friends with like cosplayers, people who dress up in costume, and they love to dress up as a Catwoman.
Yeah.
That could be
Time to come.
perfect. Yeah.
It's 15.
They will definitely enjoy it. So, that's that. September 7th is the next event we have coming up. Actually, the 6th is the party for it. So September 7th is the beginning of the 25th anniversary of Frame of Mind, the TV show I produce for KERA Television with the Video Association of Dallas. So on the day before, which is a Wednesday at the Texas Theater, there'll be a reception and a party for the 25th anniversary. The first show of Frame of Mind. For those who don't know, Frame of Mind is a show of Texas independent film. It was initially started by Marla Schmidt and Suzanne Dooley back in 1992. And so for the first episode, we're doing a retrospective of the show. I spent a lot of time looking at 25 years of shows, which is an awful lot. And the show has 42 clips in it from different filmmakers, different styles, documentary, drama, music video, experimental, poetic, goofy, strange, just all kinds of crazy things. So it's going to be a truly astounding and amazing show on the 7th at 10 o'clock. The series runs every Thursday night at 10 o'clock until Thanksgiving, when we're going to show Willie Baronet's Signs of Humanities, which is a documentary about buying signs from the homeless, which is a wonderful Thanksgiving evening show. In the middle of that, we have second week, there's a retrospective from the Mondells. Alan and Cynthia Mondell have been making films for 40 years, and this is a 40 films in 40 years retrospective, which will be really great. And there's a lot of other just truly amazing and astounding program, which I could talk about for a long time, but it's a school night and I've got to get back to work. Yes, sir.
I do have a question. So, friend of mine, where did the idea come from, and why has it lasted 25 years?
Okay, so Suzanne Dooley and Marla Schmidt, both of whom worked at the station, decided that they wanted to do kind of more interesting, sort of odd programming that really wasn't quite appropriate for the station as a whole. So they proposed, both actually individually, doing a series about independent films, and they got together and decided to do it together. What's interesting is that the beginning of the show coincided with them acquiring Channel 2, which allowed them like more time, more screen time, so they're able to have like an area to do that. Also, since it was in Channel 2, they really weren't like focusing on anything that, I think that there wasn't much paperwork done in those early days. There's a lot of paperwork done now. And they did a lot of really like great work. They would intercut a lot of things together. They showed a lot of experimental films. They showed documentaries. It was a really wonderful collection, very eclectic. And first Suzanne Dooley left, and then Marla Schmidt left. And then I got this phone call saying, because I had a guest done like 2 or 3 shows, or maybe a few more, and they said, would you like to take over the show? And I said, sure, and had no idea that it would like last this long. And what's kind of amazing is I don't know anybody else, I don't know truly anyone else who's an independent filmmaker who has access to a public television station to have a show on. There are other like shows of independent films, but it's not like those are done by a committee. There's like all this other stuff. Like they really allow me some incredible freedom to sort of push the possibility of programming, and I'm really kind of grateful that I have that ability. It's one of those things that I like wonder. I could not have imagined myself doing this had I sort of tried to do this, and I just kind of fell into these opportunities. So I'm really, really happy about it.
Has any other PBS station around the country adopted the frame of mind format?
Well, so there was a time in the 90s when we would bicycle the tapes, meaning I would this will tell you how long ago it was, a 3/4 inch tape to like 4 other stations in Texas, so that they would run them. In Houston, they have a show called The Territory, which really doesn't speak to local filmmaking as much as it is just sort of about independent film, and that's been going on for even longer than our show has. And they get some funding from the NEA and like big time funders, but there isn't this curatorial stamp that this show has. So anyway, it's one of the things that I'm really kind of happy, and it's wonderful to do. But I have to say, doing this anniversary show has kicked my butt. It just really has. And like just getting all the pieces together and finding them, and there was like the first show there was no copy of, so I Googled a person, couldn't find them. I went on Facebook and I found them, and sent him a message on Facebook, and he said, oh, I just happen to have a VHS of the first show.
Oh my God.
So there was a lot of detective work and sort of finding these interesting pieces, and some of them are just like truly wonderful. There's this moment. Okay, so there was a time when we got money from the Texas Commission of the Arts to commission shows. So one of the years I commissioned shows on death, and there's this thing I totally did not remember as I'm looking through the material. So I have this scroll that I wrote that we're doing this thing about death, and giving different filmmakers opportunities to express things in a different way. And this show is in honor of my mother, who just passed away. I totally had forgotten about that, and I was crying as I was watching it. So then the very next thing is Melinda Levin, who teaches documentary film at UNT, and she's doing this voice about the film that she's about to show, and she talks about how this is not the way she normally does it. I tell my students to push their boundaries, and this is a piece about her father who is sick and ill and dying. So those two things together just were so moving.
Oh.
Anyway, but those are the things that like I had totally forgotten, and just as moments, they're just really beautiful.
Have you thought of like distributing like the Frame of Mind either feature or past episodes to one of like the online streaming services?
Well, there's a very real problem with that, and that's most of the filmmakers don't have the rights to use the music that's in their films. And as soon as you put something online, you have to have worldwide rights, and I would say that too much of the material is not really available that way. Clearly, I would love to be able to share this to a broader audience. But before I complain about that, let me just put this another way. I run a festival. A lot of people come to my festival, I hope, and enjoy it and love it. Way more people can experience the film on television. So what this does is allows different people who are not used to getting up off their ass and going to a festival to experience a festival experience at home. And it's a truly wonderful thing. So while it'd be great to do more, that we can get this far is kind of amazing. You wouldn't believe the amount of paperwork it takes to produce a show just for a single airing. I mean, I can't tell you how many times somebody agreed to have our show shown, and then we show them the paperwork, and they say, "Oh, like I can't have it shown because I don't own the rights to broadcast rights for the show," and then I've got to figure out something to do very quickly. So that's the show, and there's like one show that is so incredibly awesome, but I'm not going to tell you about it.
Let me ask you this, Bart. Is there, you've been doing this for 24, 23 years, whenever you came on board, is there a particular film that you really wanted to put on the show that either station management said no, or you couldn't get rights otherwise, that you wanted the Dallas-Fort Worth area to see?
I don't know that I'd like to answer that question because I get upset and angry, and I'd rather not do that. But certainly there have been things that I wanted to show that I either couldn't get the rights to, or SAG wouldn't allow them. If they would have been on the air, they would have had to make SAG payments right away. And there was a couple last year, too, that were just really heartbreaking for that. But most of the work that I wasn't able to show on the show, I was able to show in another context. So it's just, I would like to be able to offer it to a different body.
Can you repeat the information about the party and where it is? And
Party will be on the 6th of August at the Texas Theater of September. Right, that's right. It's been a long day. It's been a long month. It's been a long summer.
Yes.
It really has. I'm making 4 films right now, as well as doing all this other stuff, and teaching, and everything else. 4 films. All right, so next up. So one of the things that we try to do with the festival is to rethink what we're trying to do. So on the first part of it was redefining it. So how many of you in the room have ever heard of the term Video Association of Dallas? Okay, you heard of it. All right, most of my board has it, and they're like, what is the name of this thing? So we've decided to stop fighting the bad fight and fight good fights. And so now everything we do, even though the 501c3 is the Video Association of Dallas, will be VideoFest, whatever the event is. So this sort of hit home to me when I was talking to a good friend, and she said, the meeting alley looks really great, but I have no idea that was put on by you, because it doesn't say it anywhere. So it's like we really had a branding issue. So now we will have consistent branding. And we didn't have to pay $1 million to have somebody tell us to do it. So that's like thing one. Thing two, and this is really the big thing, and the thing that I'm hoping to tell you, which really is the heart of why I wanted to talk to you tonight. So for years we have done like 150 films over 6 days, 9 days, 8 days, however ambitious I felt that year, however what I wanted to do. And I just realized that it was time to change. And there are a lot of reasons for this. Certainly it's really hard to gain attention for 150 films. Like the newspapers in town won't write very much about more than a few of them. And it's hard to really produce a good event when you have a lot going on. And as somebody who goes to a lot of film festivals, there is always a level of anxiety when you're at any festival about, should I be going to this film, or this film? And I'm going to miss something. So I got the idea to do less. And this bucks the trend. Every festival decides like, oh, well, we did 4 days, so let's do 5 days. Let's do 6 days, we'll do 3 rooms. And then we'll have this VR room, and then we'll have this other room. And then we'll do this other thing, and we'll do this other thing. This is the way I've been working and operating for 29 years. Oh, by the way, did I mention? This is our 30th festival coming up. 3-0, right?
It's a lot.
So if you think about it, I'm 64 years old and I've been doing the festival for 30 years. That's like almost half my life. That's like sick, that's crazy.
A lot.
Who does this? Who does this?
Artistically obsessive.
You know, yeah, it's insane. Okay, so the idea is to do less and to never have 2 screens going on at the same time. And then while I was sort of thinking about that, I was thinking, how can I like break up what we do in a more sort of thoughtful manner? So first weekend in October, which is the, whatever that Wednesday through Sunday is, Dallas VideoFest, DocFest. Documentaries, 1 theater, 15 films. That's it. Next weekend, Ernie Kovacs Award, which this year will be in Richardson at Studio Movie Grill.
No,
No?
elementary.
Alamo Draft House, that's what I meant to say. I always mix them two of them up. Yes, the Alamo Draft House. Okay, Alamo Draft House in Richardson. Actually, Studio Movie Grill is not really literally in Richardson.
Right.
It's on the other side of the street, which is sad because we can't do, if we want to get money from the city of Richardson, we can't. Anyway, so that's also the story. So, yeah, which will be a wonderful evening, and I, at this point, I'm not allowed to say who it is, but they're from Canada. That's all I'm saying. Okay?
They're cool people.
They are really, would I have uncool people?
No,
I mean, come on.
this is particularly cool.
Then, first weekend in November, we have Dallas Video Fest Alternative Fictions. And this will be television and narrative films. 15 films. There will be like short sequence. There's like a, the mobile festival. I think we're doing something with women in film. And so there'll be a few things like that. Some of the sort of normal things we do will show up in the alternative fictions. I think the documentary festival, I know there's already several films that we have that are truly astounding. That
Do we have nailed down where those are going to be? No.
Mostly, but until I have a contract signed in my hand, because of previous issues, I would not say that.
Okay. I'll
Okay?
leave that. Yes.
So I have what I think will happen, but I can't really say for sure.
Okay.
When thinking about sort of moving into television, like the reasons are obvious, right? We all know that television is in this age where things are just truly magnificent, right? When you see a show on TV, some of them, best of them are truly cinematic. A few months ago, I went to the Austin ATX Television Festival and really had a wonderful time to just see what a television festival is about. And the people there aren't fans, they are fanatics. There are people who've seen every episode of every show like 20 times. And it's very different from a traditional film festival audience. It's a really wonderful and fun time, but it's a very different kind of vibe. So what I'm trying to do in this television festival, and remember, I haven't like programmed anything for this part yet. Maybe I have, I'm not sure. But I know there are some things I want to do. I'm looking to both deal with local connections to television, and there'll be some interesting things there that I can't quite reveal yet, but they're very interesting. And then I'm trying to look for what I call the auteurs of television, people who have created work that is substantial. So rather than having like all the cast and crew from this TV show that's going to like air next week on your station and like that kind of thing, which is wonderful. I mean, there's a really great thing about it, but I want to find people and look for people who have created really good work for television and have them show different kinds of work and talk about it. That's what I'm looking for. Yes?
What is your definition in this section of VideoFest? What is your definition of television? Because it could be Netflix, it could be a guy having a channel on Roku or Apple TV, YouTube stuff, Vimeo, network, PBS. What is your...
All the above.
All the above?
Anything that is not necessarily originally intended for the silver screen. So, for example, the one thing I do know that I can tell you is Yaki Smith's webisode series will be part of that television section, right? So that's not television, but it is a television-like experience. So, so yes, there is quite a broad sense of diversity, and programming is a very different kind of thing. But and I'm also trying to look for some people that do crossover, that both do films and television, because I think that would be kind of an interesting.
Are you bringing back the London Advertising Awards?
I'm not committing yes or no to that because I don't know like how much space I'll have, and certainly that could go on television, and that certainly would be a good thing to do and something I love a lot. Same thing about the SIGGRAPH. I don't know. I can't say for sure that I'm going to bring that back. As I reconsider what this means for me, I think it's really going to be wonderful. I think people will enjoy it. But it's going to be really hard for me to go from picking 150 films to 30 films. Because generally, it's the last 3 or 4 things that you select that are really cool and people love. So that means there's going to be a lot more saying no to people than saying yes to people. And as somebody who's been doing this for a long time, it's always a very sad thing to send out a rejection notice, and it's even sadder when you know the people and like and love and respect them to turn down work. And it's very clear that there will be people whose work I've accepted for many, many years who I will not be able to find room for because it is less space. I mean, my operating theory for so long has been there's so much here, there's something you've got to like, and there's such diversity, so many different ways that people work with the medium. Now I'm trying to say, here's something I'm going to build an event around, and I think that you'll find this really interesting, and you'll find the next thing really interesting, and I'll build a sort of single screen experience for you to enjoy. So that's my kind of hope and dream.
Because of this shorter, this chopped up schedule and, one screen and not so many films, are you going to continue to go to your usual haunts, the San Francisco Jewish Film Festival, the PBS conference you go to, or are you going to go to new, avenues and sources for material?
Well, the Input conference is mostly for television anyway. I will go to most things that I go to. I unfortunately was not able to go to the Jewish the San Francisco Jewish Film Festival, but I had Mort Meyerson go instead of me and take extensive notes, which he did. And I have many people who went, and I know the person who programs that festival very well, Jay Rosenblatt, who's a filmmaker that we've shown for many years. Yeah, I mean, I have done some extensive travel. Next week I'm going to the El Paso Classic Film Festival, where I'll be introducing a few films. But more importantly, I will be meeting with and looking at recent work from El Paso filmmakers over the weekend. So it's very important to connect to the rest of the state in really kind of fascinating ways. So yeah, I travel a little more than I'd like. The summer has been, it's a lot of travel.
I guess one final question for me about VideoFest. In years past, you've always teamed up with Dallas Chamber Symphony, done this, commissioned score, silent film, opening night. Is that going to change, or are you going to go in a different direction?
Well, I think in general we're going in a different direction.
I guess my question is there going to be a big opening night, or?
I got an opening night, but it doesn't have a live piece of music. I've got something already in the books for that. But I do have something in the works that may or may not happen that will take the core concept of that live event and transform it in a different and unexpected way.
Of course you do.
To be continued.
That's great. Would that be for the October? Or, okay.
Just to say I'm working on something. And it may happen and it may not happen. I would rather not say, because if it doesn't happen, I don't want to jinx it.
Yeah.
But once the cameras are all off, I'll tell you what's going on, what I'm thinking.
Okay.
So basically, Dallas Video Association, traditionally over the last 30 years, sold memberships. Those memberships go to fund your programming. But they also, too, if you buy a membership, you get passes and stuff. With everything being so spread out now, are you going to focus on a membership or do like a season pass type of deal?
Okay, so first of all, I did not mention sort of one important bit of naming. So what we're deciding to call what we're doing the fall season. So it's just like the opera has a season. This is VideoFest fall season. Of course, that implies we have a spring season
Right.
and winter
Which
season.
could be the University Film
We have the University Film Festival. We have 24-hour video rest. No, Media Alley is every 2 years.
2 years, that's right. But it's.
But I do have a plan for another festival in the off year of the Media Alley.
Oh.
And this is just talk in the works, but I don't mind saying this, it may not happen. If it doesn't happen this year, it may happen next year. But I wanted to do a festival that really deals with new art and technology melding. For so many years, particularly the first 15 years of our festival, we would do virtual reality, high definition, CD-ROMs, interactive, every kind of new emerging technology. We would be at the forefront about how artists can work with that. And sort of the rest of the world has caught up with us and doing a whole lot of other stuff. We are now trying to find a way to sort of merge that universe and talk about how art and technology can move forward in the future. And I've got some interesting ideas for that, but that would be next summer. So that should be pretty awesome.
And you do all of this on top of teaching.
And did I tell you making 4 films?
Yes.
So let me tell you about one of them, which is such a cool thing, okay? So many of you know I've been doing this film about Brave Combo for a long time. I've also been working on a film about the film critic Andrew Saris. There's a guy who teaches poetry at SMU named Greg Bronderville. He's head of the creative writing program and also the editor of the Southwest Review, which is a famous poetry journal. And he's written this series of poems that are these poets, these strange, interesting poets, like the chef who the food is his poetry. This other character who takes photos of bathrooms in the South, and she puts them together into poetry. So there are these 6 fascinating, interesting poets. And so one layer of this story is Greg and I, like on the road, looking for these characters, and there's this overriding story about this plane that got lost, and this character, and this whole other kind of adventure, and then we come across these people, and these performances are sort of the main meat of that. But then there's this other character called the archivist, who is like jockeying these like VHS tapes and telling you that everything we're doing is wrong, and we're telling you lies, and it's not really true. So, as interesting as all that is, that's not the most interesting part of this project. Most interesting project is how it's being delivered. This is not meant to be a videotape. This will be an iPhone app. When you sign up for the iPhone app, you will get either the videos, music, text messages, still images, like part of this narrative, at irregular times pushed to you. So you never know when the next episode is coming.
Huh.
And I don't know anybody who has done like media delivery in this kind of way.
Is there any plan to have that on Android, or is that part of that?
What's this you speak of? I've heard that there's something called Android, but I've never had the Android experience. So if you don't know, I am deeply committed to Apple products. In fact, many of you don't know this, but I was recently admitted to the Apple Distinguished Educators Program, which is a very prestigious thing, and it's kind of a big deal. So, yes, I'm very committed to Apple.
How did you get involved in that program?
Actually, a friend of mine who works at Apple suggested I apply to it, and so I made a little video talking about what I did and wrote why I should be in there, and they said, okay. And I went to this wonderful 3-day Apple Distinguished Educators Academy and really learned how a lot of teachers are using Apple products in like amazing ways. Particularly iPads. I mean, the thing that was really amazing to me is how many like K through 12 programs give their students iPads or pass them out in the classroom. And once you do that, you change the geography of the classroom. So you don't have desks and the teacher in the foreground. You have areas where people work. And so the idea is, instead of like, go home and write a paper about Martin Luther King, it's like, let's make a podcast about Martin Luther King. Let's do a video about Martin Luther King. And, you know, let's do like an iBook about that. And so the kids are doing the same research, but they're building media and working together. And some of them are like working with a school across town or a school in China that they connect to, and they work on the project together. And like the idea about how education can be totally transformed, or what they're calling flipping the classroom, is a really fascinating thing. So I'm trying to figure out how to do that in my classroom as well. So, and then I'm doing a film connected to Mort Meyerson's way of doing what he calls guerrilla tzedakah, which is going around and giving small amounts of money to small nonprofits in small cities, rather than doing philanthropy through big money to big projects.
For the non-Jews in this room,
Right.
which is everyone else but you and I,
Yeah.
explain what tzedakah.
Tzedakah means charity. So the idea is that he is turning the idea of philanthropy on its head. And so the idea of this film is to show what he's doing, and also to highlight how people who might know about an interesting thing that they could do to start a nonprofit. Because all of these people were talking about, how did you start, what were the problems you had, what did you do when you had like a dark moment, and how did you get over that. So we're trying to sort of say, if you see kids who need an after-school program, go do it, right? There are ways, there are more things that can be done on a local level to help people than through politics, because the politics are so messed up right now. So that's the fourth project.
That's great.
So I got nothing to do.
Is there anything
You want to
else?
hang out and have a beer?
I do have a quick question. You know, you've been teaching for so many years. I won't say how long, but could you name over the course of maybe the last 30 years what the 5 most important Apple products that changed the way you've done education and taught students?
Well, I can tell you about the one in rather major detail. So there was this amazing moment when we used to shoot with like Super 8 film, and then there was 8mm, and then high 8 and SVHS, and all those things were analog formats. And editing analog formats was always a problem. We used to edit film on film. We would have these video cards, which only worked occasionally, that would transfer your SVHS tape into a computer so that you could edit it with Adobe Premiere, or even if you were using Avid Media Composer. And Avid Media Composer was basically an offline material. And all of these systems were expensive and were very buggy. And so Apple came along with this concept called FireWire. So FireWire enabled you to take material from a mini DV camera, and the first camera that had that was a Sony VX1000 that had a mini DV port on it, and allowed you to bring it into your Mac computer that had a FireWire cable on it. And then they also came out at the very same time with Final Cut Pro, which allowed you to take the digital signal from your high-end camera, transfer it over this cable because it was already digital, and bring it into Final Cut Pro and edit in a very professional way for a fraction of what was possible before. That one act of creating the FireWire, the Final Cut Pro, and Sony having the mini DV camera with that port on it revolutionized not just student filmmaking, but independent filmmaking. People could buy a professional camera, and I truly remember when the VX1000 came out, spending time with my friend Bob Toulier, who had a Betacam camera, which cost like 10 times as much, and we'd put them side by side, and he said, oh my God, the Sony VX1000 looked that good. And the idea that in order for him to get the material into a computer, he had to go through a bunch of steps, and I could just put them in there. And people could buy the whole system for less money than they were paying Avid for their monthly service fee. So it totally revolutionized the ability for everyday people to create powerful images for television, for film festivals, and it was probably the largest game breaker.
What year was that? Or
I'm too
around?
tired to know. I don't, somewhere in the 90s, probably 92 or 3 or something like that.
FireWire was that back?
Yeah, FireWire was and it was the FireWire cable, which is an Apple trademark. That was the thing that enabled that whole revolution. Without that, none of this would have happened. It was a profound change. Just like the next sort of profound change was digital SLRs, because you could have high resolution images for very little money. And I remember when the first time that those started happening, when we do the video race, and you project this on the Angelica Theater on this large screen, it really looked great. And it really didn't look like the mini DV footage we've been showing for years. Mm-hmm. So there are steps along the way that have really sort of been transformational.
So in this rebranding of VideoFest, gone to November, you're going to do the alternative fiction. So what's after that?
After that, I try to get some sleep and get caught up in work, and maybe work on some of these films that I'm supposed to be working on.
And Hanukkah?
And Hanukkah, oh yeah, that's right. Yes, I do have to buy some Hanukkah presents, if I have any friends left by then.
Fireworks, New Year's Eve.
Right, so then we have...
in Turkey.
in the winter, we'll definitely be doing the North Texas University Film Festival, and then I think probably we'll move the 24-hour video race to more like the April thing than March, April. So it's like finding the spot between DIF and South by Southwest. So whenever we can sort of manage that, that's when that will happen. And then if we can get our act together, this Art and Technology Festival in the summer, and then we do it all again. And if it doesn't work, we go back to the old school. That's always an option. You know, I hope this works. You know, I have to say that in the last 3 months, I've been sort of deliberating about this and talking to a lot of people. And not a single person has looked me in the eye and said, you know, that's a really crazy thing to do. So either that means people don't want to or afraid to like say that to me, which may certainly be possible, or it might actually work out well. I don't know. But I think given how many festivals there are coming on, the idea of doing less and doing it better seems like a good idea. And, you know, to be like really, really honest, I am 64. I am the Beatles here. And I want to be able to do this for a while. And I can't do the pace of 150 films. It takes so long to get over that. And, you know, when I'm doing a Q&A and I'm worried that there's like, what's in the next room? Is that going okay? And that causes a level of anxiety. And so I'll just have different anxiety this time.
Now what about like the Lone Star Film Festival? Who runs that?
I don't know. Let's just say that they have had shift in personnel over the last few years. I think what they do is a really good thing. I'm very happy that Fort Worth has a good festival. I'm also very pleased that they are doing programs throughout the year because they don't have the same kind of both repertory and indie foreign film theaters that we have here in Dallas. So the Lone Star Festival, working with the Fort Worth Modern, has done a great job at providing a service to people to watch films in Fort Worth.
So it's for the 30th year of VideoFest, are you guys going to do anything special, except with the exception of all this new crazy scheduling and stuff?
Are we gonna see the mines come back?
What?
No, anything's been.
You know, that wasn't like the first thing that came to mind.
Yeah,
So here's the problem with that. I mean, obviously it's an opportunity to celebrate. And, you know, I thought the 20th and 25th anniversaries were kind of a big deal. I don't want to over-celebrate every 5 years just because we've lived another 5 years. And if I'm already like trimming things down, to do retrospective programming would trim down even more. So it's like, I'll do retrospective programming and I'll have 3 new programs. Like, that's just not a great idea. So what I might do is do some interstitials, or maybe like have some screens with some older things on them in the background, or some posters over the years. We have over the years had art shows of our art from the festival, so we might try to see if we can do that. Hopefully the local newspapers will write stories about Still Alive at 30 and thriving, and, you know, something like that. That'd be nice. And that's my best I can hope for. I'm too busy working to stop and say, hey, we're here, we've been doing this. So probably not as much as others might.
Just have like a big disco party, and that'll be it.
Okay.
Big disco party.
No, I mean like.
Okay, so maybe at one of these 2 festivals, maybe I'll do like a VJ night, and I'll show some video bar videos.
Oh, that'd be great.
Well, I mean,
Yes.
like with last year, like during the festival, there was also like a night party that was like below the Angelica Dallas. I'm not sure if that was like
the
a part of
lounge?
these. I think that was the lounge.
Yeah. So what we do in terms of parties will be somewhat determined by what spaces we're in,
Yeah.
and I can't commit to anything until I know what those spaces are. So
VideoFest, the party is more watching the films.
it's been our problem for the most part. Is most other festivals, you go to the party to hang out with the celebrities, and usually, like, in order to do that, you have to miss the 10 o'clock film.
Yeah.
I'd rather people go to the 10 o'clock film.
Right.
So,
Priorities are different.
What's
That's
that?
good. Priorities are different, and it's
Yeah.
good.
well, it's different.
Yeah.
There are good things about having celebrities having parties to go see them.
Well,
I have nothing against that. That's just not the way my brain's wired.
Yeah. You can have parties in the theater. I'm just kidding.
Yeah, well, watching the movie. Anything else, you guys?
Gordon, you've been awfully quiet today.
Awfully quiet.
What's the matter? Are you plotting my demise? Well,